Welcome to
we forgot
Ecom
about
Stand
that.
Up with Daria. We didn't tell you about the dance. Welcome to Ecom Stand Up with Daria and Belle. Excited to be here today, Belinda.
Very excited to be here. We are having a guest today who's looking at us as if we're like, two as if we're like
two crazy
shipping.
ladies.
Yeah, there we go. We do. Yes, and forgive my background. I'm trying to move my head around, so my plug outlet, whatever you call them there, I had to move to my boudoir. It's the coolest place in the house. We're just having huge weather. Big weather. We're having big weather here at the moment. So
Summer in Brazil. It's just, is it summer? Fall? I don't even know what season it is.
It should be autumn, but we're, heading to 40 degrees, and I just can't.
Chaos.
I can't bear it.
Well, Belinda has been complaining about the heat for, I feel like, forever now. In other news, though, I think I'm trying to figure out what's kind of stressing me out right now, and it's this TikTok. Do you know about the outlawing TikTok decision that I think is happening today or this week or something?
Don't they always say they're going to outlaw TikTok? I do feel like
they always do, but I feel like it's happening. I don't know. I feel like it's happening.
Really?
I don't know. It was something like, it was like a 50-0 vote on the committee, and now it's going to this, and Biden said he would absolutely accept the outlawing of it. So I don't know. I am so, it's something that interests me so much because I feel like I'm on a really good side of TikTok. Like I actually feel
I'm
like
on a really good side of TikTok as well, baby.
No, I just learned so much. I find books to read. I have parenting tips. Like, I don't know. I'm not on whatever malevolent side of TikTok. I mean, I don't know what is happening with my data, but I don't know what's happening with my data with Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all these other things. So I don't know why TikTok is such a, it's not American, I guess.
So you say that because I was actually reading an article this morning about not the evolution of Web3. I mean, I'm not talking about decentralized blockchain or anything like that, but what the next evolution of the internet is, taking it back to what it should be. And yeah, I'll actually forward it to you. It's ostensibly, they want to create data pods. So your data will be on your pod in the cloud, and you can actively choose which apps you want to allow access to.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that will be also taking, and that's the idea of just the internet in general, was to kind of decentralize and make information available to everyone. So yeah, just again decentralizing kind of power of the corporations.
Yeah.
However, from the other side of the fence, we love your data, baby. How do we make decisions without trying to understand you for e-commerce?
Well, not only that, that of course, but also, obviously there was a big to-do with iOS 14 and advertising on Meta platforms, and got so much more expensive and so much less, just not as good for companies. Finally, I feel like people are starting to use TikTok in a better way, and now they're probably going to get rid of it. So anyway, we could talk about this forever, but like Belinda said before, we have a very exciting guest on today. So I'm going to introduce Jamie Lee, advisor, consultant, and content creator for e-commerce. Welcome, Jamie. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Daria, Belinda, so happy to be here. Glad we're connecting today.
Yeah, glad we're connecting. I'm sorry if we kind of threw you off with our little dance. It started as a, just to give you a little history to that, when we first started going on video, I couldn't quite figure out the sound. So I thought I was playing it. I was dancing. Belinda kind of gave me the same look that you gave us and was like, what are you doing? Why are you dancing? And I was like, can you not hear the intro song? So now we do little dance moves. We should now warn people, hey, we're going to dance. You're welcome to dance too. Poorly dance. I don't even know if you could call it dancing. We move to music.
We're vibing. Yeah.
We're vibing.
It's a fun warm-up song.
Exactly. Just get us in the mood a little bit. Just get us in the mood.
Exactly.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? You're obviously an advisor and consultant now, but tell us about, your first job in e-commerce, your last job in e-commerce, and everything in between.
Yeah, so I'm happy to take you through my journey. In a nutshell, a lot of my 14 years has really been spent on driving growth in e-commerce for what I like to call hyper growth
Ooh, love
stages
that.
of these brands. And my first chapter was really in the consumer electronics space. So really getting my bearings on, okay, what is D2C? What is e-commerce? What does store expansion look like? So I spent time at both Sony Electronics and EA,
Nice.
really building out the D2C footprint. So thinking of things like what does Black Friday or Cyber Monday look like, which was a thing back then, like
Right.
still in its
Yeah,
infancy.
that's amazing.
Figuring that out, launching our first concept store in LA, and then also building out that infrastructure for ecom for Sony. So thinking about what does category management look like? How do we drive more profitable growth through warranties, accessories, things like
Nice.
that? And then at EA, my time there was really focused on helping building out
Oh,
origin.com.
Okay.
wow.
So thinking about the D2C arm, what does go to market look like? How do we think about new technology, dynamic pricing, and also a go to market plan? So again, a lot of the basics, how we might think about subscription and D2C as part of the
And
business
so this,
model.
just to give people, you said 14 years. So this was around 2010?
Around 2010,
Wow. Okay.
yes.
That's awesome.
So when e-commerce was still in its early
Yeah.
Yeah.
days and D2C was still fairly nascent and everyone was just trying to figure it out together. But it's really fun to be a part of that chapter and journey to say
Mm.
what's next for these more legacy brands that are so heavily dependent on other
Mm-hmm.
retailers to drive the
Yeah.
business.
Well, Sony, that's so interesting, right? Because Sony definitely falls in that category where in 2010, probably didn't have much of a D2C presence, if at all. It was probably exclusively big box stores. I could be wrong,
Yes.
but I don't know that I was buying anything at Sony.com. I was probably buying everything at Best Buy or something like that.
Spot on.
Yeah.
And prior to joining too, I was buying at Best Buy or other
Yeah.
retailers. I didn't even realize like, oh, Sony has its owned properties across stores, across digital
Yeah.
as well. So it's great to be able to ideate and see like what is the vision for that
Yeah.
look
So-
like.
And especially, sorry, Belinda.
Yeah, so interesting because we were just talking about this, how so many brands feel stuck. Especially, okay,
Right.
so not necessarily, kind of established brands, but who are sitting in that kind of mid-range. They're in a lot of retailers and they're like, oh, my D2C, like either I started on D2C, had huge success, now I'm doing so well in physical stores and my D2C is flagging. But it's not, it's looking
Right.
at these different channels that's so exciting. And we, just taking the lead from the Sonys, the Nikes, like how they're actually building that out.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And what's really interesting too is a lot of the impetus at Sony and EA was really more of a brand push, having that more mono brand experience to say, okay, we can express our elevated element through our D2C properties. So across Sony physical stores or the digital properties, there can be more brand storytelling. So that was a lot of the drive too. And the revenue play was a little bit more secondary at the time,
You touched
given that
on something,
would
creating their first experience store in LA, which I think is, can you talk a little bit more about an experience store and what that really is?
Yes. So we launched the very first Sony store in Century City. I want to say, I wish it was still around to visit for the memories. But I think it's since transitioned to another location, or the team's really thinking about other ways to retail. But really, the push behind that was there's a lot of quality across Sony products. Obviously, Apple is a big behemoth in the space in key categories that Sony was in. But we believe that if consumers had the option to try our products, to do kind of more blind testing across products. So, like, even the Walkman at that time was trying to make a comeback, which was hilarious, kind of looking back at
I think it's trying to make
it.
a
But we were saying,
comeback
like,
now
hey,
again.
the audio quality. Yes, exactly. We always go through these ebbs and flows of let's
That's
bring back
retro.
the throwbacks.
Yeah.
So having the audio testing of like, hey, listen to an Apple product versus a Sony product, or use an Apple laptop versus a Sony laptop, it really allowed consumers to feel the difference of Sony products. And that's something that we really believed in and invested in at the time. So we knew that there would be a lot of upfront costs, but we wanted to elevate the experience for consumers. So we also did a lot of event marketing. I think that's tricky. There's events and experiences, and it's great for brand buzz. But in terms of ROI and scalability. I think ultimately, I wasn't there kind of when the transition happened. I think that might have been a more challenging piece to examine as they were looking to scale stores.
It's so interesting too with physical retail because you obviously want the kind of brand marketing that comes with the footprints, right? And you want to be in a place like Century City so that people are seeing the name. Even with a recognized brand like Sony, you want to just remind people, hey, Sony, 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 and kind of have them keep seeing that. And it's always a balance between, yes, I want sales, but like you said, revenue was kind of second in terms of really more in favor of brand marketing, brand competition, etc. So that's super, super interesting. And we see that still. I mean, I know H&M had an experience store. I don't know if it's still up in Williamsburg, where they were doing, it was a very small store. I think it was mostly, I actually think you ended up buying things online in the store. And it had like AR type mirror where you could kind of try different things. And it was very interesting. I didn't get a chance to visit, but my friend works there. And you're also,
That's awesome.
I'm trying to think of there's a ton of companies doing experience-based stores, especially leveraging, you don't need a huge retail space. So you don't need to pay a ton of rent because you don't need to fit that much in it to do an experience store.
Exactly. And I think this is just my personal opinion, not like an assessment of Sony, but we had a really big store. Yeah. And I think that's also like, okay, how do we fill this out? It was great from a discovery perspective because we saw a lot of consumers come in and be like, oh, I didn't know you were in this category, or tell me more about your warranty. So the other service element, as I mentioned, we were trying to drive more profitable growth too. That was like, oh, we can upsell on this. And the margins are pretty significant on selling warranties, for instance, or accessories.
That's cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that was interesting. And one other thing we learned too when opening up stores is that it's really hard to get tip-top real estate. So meaning looking at the right store within Century City. So the ones getting really great foot traffic, those are established stores that already exist and will continue to exist for a reason. And the ones that are open for lease are the ones that haven't done as well. So it's a really tricky balance to be like, okay, we want to be here, but if other brands have also showed it was hard for them to stay here for many years, what is the general foot traffic in this area and how might that contribute to success? Yeah. So it's a delicate balance.
It's also an interesting, so I have a friend, I'm not going to say the two, he works at a fairly large retailer, and was talking about how his lease was up at one of their physical locations. And he's trying to decide, should I keep this lease? Should I go to one of my competitors and actually just offer, because their lease is up too, should I offer the landlord more money and see if I can get their space? So it's also an interesting thing of like, how can you either, again, like you said, if a store is open, something did not do well in that store. So you have to consider that. You have to take that with a grain of salt. Why, there's obviously a million reasons why they might have not done well, but you have to consider that. It's open for a reason, right? Exactly. And then think about, where else can you kind of make a difference, or where else can you find a location that makes sense?
Yeah. How?
And who are your neighbors? Store-wise.
Exactly. Yeah.
That are going to help drive traffic. There's only so much that signage in the mall can do. It says like Sony store this way.
Well, I've always, I don't know, I think this is a fairly common thing in cities. I've always thought it was interesting how New York has very specific districts. Like if you go to kind of the 30s and like it's very furniture based. Like you'll walk within a 5-block radius and you'll just keep seeing furniture stores. If you're in the 20s and Broadway, it's all plant stores. And it's very interesting how they're kind of using that to their advantage where, if you go to Design Within Reach, there should also be a CB2 there because you're going to benefit from that foot traffic of, each other's competitors. I always thought that was fascinating.
It's huge. We still have that here. And it relates to the concept of the high street, as we call it, like in the UK, right? It's huge, huge, huge in Brazil. Like there is a lighting store district that is just blocks and blocks and blocks. And I always thought, well, no, don't. You don't want to be next to any of your competitors. But like if you see a dentist's office, there's another dentist's office beside it. And somehow
it's the same with coffee shops.
Both thrive, right?
So we have on our corner, we have a Starbucks. We have a Gregory's Caddy Corner. And a Dunkin' Donuts just opened another block away. And it's like they are taking away from each other's business, but they also, it's very, I mean, the amount that things have kind of grown and changed and on that one corner is fascinating.
But I think it's just that it's calling people. So people just know there's coffee here. I'll make the decision when I get there. There's somehow, it's kind of interesting. Does that translate to online though? Like,
I mean, you can't really be next to somebody online. I guess it translates to ads if you're buying an ad.
Right?
Yeah.
Just in terms of positioning yourself, making sure, we always use the analogy, right? White sneakers. We just don't have the budget to compete with Nike for the term white sneakers. But we can try and be clever using kind of semantic, long-tailed things so that we're in the neighborhood. And I think a lot of people just try and set themselves apart from their competition. What's new, what's different, and you need to have differentiators. But white sneakers, right? You must have that on your store somewhere if you're going to try and compete organically.
Well, that's so, and Jamie, we'll get back to kind of the next step in your journey. But we, Belinda, just in terms of our parent company, TVP, when we were, when we started doing AdWords and kind of researching, we thought everyone was searching merchandise. Turns out everyone is searching swag. And it's like, okay, we just gotta be looking at what everyone's searching. All right. So what was after Sony?
Yes. So I spent some time at EA, so a little over a year. They're really focused on growing the D2C business as well. A lot of it was more infrastructure. So thinking about what tools are needed, what does a go-to-market plan look like, playbooks, infrastructure. So quicker jaunt there. And then after that, I kind of explored my next chapter in more leadership roles across established companies, really laser focused on more digital transformation and innovation. Okay. So rather than just like, hey, D2C store expansion, now let's think of like, what are new and novel ways that we can disrupt through digital? So my next chapter was at kind of Walmart and Nike, really focused on that. So my time at Walmart was kind of twofold through Walmart Labs. Which is an innovation hub within e-com. Spent some time on the food subscription business.
Nice.
We tried doing that for about a year, quickly learned that margins are very difficult to achieve at scale, especially in the grocery and food space. So we pivoted that concept and we were able to launch kind of that pilot to scale to market 1,000 for Walmart online grocery. So the online grocery delivery and pickup service to really help deliver that new business model. And then also worked on toys and baby categories from a category management perspective, really trying to usher their digital push since a lot of these brands were really focused on retailing at stores.
Tell me a bit. So I don't know much. What is Walmart Labs? So you said, tell me more about that.
I'm happy to dive in. So Walmart Labs was actually a kind of result of an acquisition of this startup called Cosmix, which is really focused on social commerce, new business models. And then it served as almost an innovation hub within Walmart e-com. So a lot of testing and learning, really, you kind of get the best of all worlds. You get the backing of Walmart in terms of funding of your projects and the resources, but you get the flexibility and autonomy of a 15-person team.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Okay.
So I think the tough part is like you will truly test and learn, and a lot of these projects will not, is not designed to scale. It really just almost like an R&D hub. So if you do want to see projects at scale, you sort of have to go back into the behemoth of Walmart.com and get embedded in one of those projects. But it was a ton of fun.
Well, and I don't know. So what years were you at Walmart?
So 2013 to 2017.
Okay. And it's very interesting because I take a lot from personal experience and personal shopping habits. And Walmart is not a place I've shopped at much, to be candid. And I think, there aren't many in the New York, New Jersey area physical stores, at least not in the city. I do think Walmart is kind of bigger in slightly more rural areas. I think the physical store, I could be wrong about that too, but at least I haven't seen many of them. And then Walmart.com is also interesting because I think they were struggling against Amazon for a while. And they had to create their own version of like Amazon Prime. I think they actually tried to beat the 2-day delivery, and they were like 1-day delivery. Like, let's just, because they just needed the traffic. Did you work at all on that, or was that kind of after you?
Those were some adjacent
Okay.
teams that worked on it, but I know that was a big push too to go head to head with
Yeah.
Amazon. Walmart having kind of secondary market share in the market. We knew that we still had a pretty good grip on the market, but we always knew that Amazon was the leader. So it was very interesting to come in as like almost second place. It's like, okay, how do we still differentiate ourselves? And we did feel like online grocery pickup and delivery was a way to do that, really
Yeah.
tapping into Walmart's core strengths. So to your point, we're not in big cities, but really in these rural areas. And we know a lot of the core customers there that we have or haven't reached yet still had the whole like, hey, you know, Walmart stores are huge and it takes a long time to shop through them. So the time piece, so like, I just want to shop at Walmart for the prices, but save a ton of time. So this was a model to simplify for them. You order online, you pick up in store. And what we found was that these customers were also so much more valuable than the store shopper alone or the e-com customer
Oh,
alone.
that's interesting.
Higher
Oh, wow.
frequency and also higher like greater shopping habits. So for instance, if they would pick up in store, they would still go in the store to pick up more food, which we thought was very fascinating.
That is fascinating. Well, and I think
Yeah.
it makes sense too. I use Amazon Fresh for groceries right now, just because it's so easy. And I definitely find myself spending, because you can browse everything so much more easily than you can by going to a big supermarket. I at least know, I was just in Colorado, and I think the main supermarket was like a Key Foods, something like that. And it was,
Yeah.
and again, living in New York, we have small grocery stores.
Yeah.
It was so overwhelming, just like to get, like, I missed an aisle. I had to go back all the way through the store to get to the eggs. I was like, this is too much. Like, I've been in here too long. I just don't want to buy this anymore. So being able to browse that online and just like add it all and go pick it up, to me is, you know, the best of both worlds. And yeah, if you forgot something, or if you realized after you placed your order you need something, or if you have some time, why not keep, you know, going through the store? I do just think it's so interesting though that Walmart obviously had the retail market share, and I am the journey to digital for them, whereas Amazon started digital and like is now kind of toying with, I mean, they obviously bought Whole Foods, and then they had those like Amazon Go stores, but I don't know if they've really they still have some of those, but that journey is just so interesting, and trying to kind of capitalize on that traffic and that user base.
Do they have pickup points for Amazon where you can pick up your packages? No.
They have Amazon lockers.
They should just have a few goods there to sell as well.
I don't know, but they're usually rentals like within other stores.
Yeah, that's true.
Like an Amazon locker in a postage store, or an Amazon locker in a pharmacy or something like that.
Yeah.
That is
kind of interesting.
And also through Whole Foods. And I've also noticed they now have return points at Kohl's.
Yeah.
So when I look to return my product, it's like, would you like to drop it off at Kohl's or Whole Foods?
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
And they put their return pick a point in the back.
So they want you to go through the store.
Encouragement. And when I do returns at Kohl's, they'll actually give me a coupon. 30% off to shop through the store. So I think it's a really interesting partnership model.
It's almost like it's like a referral model. It's like, hey, come here, like, get in the store. It's free, and then get a discount on anything you might be buying.
It's almost like, we'll just buy this to facilitate returns so we can get...
Right.
Oh, it's clever. It's really clever.
It's smart.
It is. What next for Jamie after that? Because now
Nike
we're like
next, right?
so key.
Yeah.
Sony, Walmart. Exciting.
So Nike was next. I'm happy to dive into that too. So my role there, I was there for about 4 years as well. Jumped in really to help usher kind of what they call the double at the time. So this was in 2017, where they wanted to double the digital growth.
Wow.
So that was the big push. Which is very ambitious, but Nike is amazing with their taglines. So they got to hook you with great marcoms, even through the orientation process. And so as one of the leaders of the digital team, so my role was really focused on global growth for Nike.com, especially my first year there. And a lot of it was like building the foundation for digital growth. I think what was interesting to me is, from an external perspective, I would think that Nike's digital maturity is so far along, but it's more similar to other consumer goods brands. So at that time, it was more nascent. I wouldn't say it's like an infant stage, but more nascent because, again, a lot of the growth and revenue is coming from non-digital properties. So a very interesting kind of trend that I had been noting along the way. So a lot of my responsibility was more focused on, okay, what does an ideal product management roadmap look like? How do we bring in consumer insights, digital consumer insights back into product creation? And what does AOP look like? So annual operating plan for the digital business. So it's almost like standing up, helping stand up this new digital business in this behemoth organization.
That's very, very exciting to me. And I'm just going to share my screen quickly and pull up Nike.com
Yeah.
because we talk about Nike a good amount when we do what we call site takedowns a lot. And
Oh, awesome.
Nike is one I actually don't know if we've done it officially, Belinda, so we should, but it's one we
No.
reference a lot as to how what great things they're doing from a UX perspective. So one thing that I don't think they've changed in, I don't know, at least 5 years is their menu. It is so easy to use.
Correct.
It is so it's amazing how easy it is, like for a brand that offers so much, right? From shoes to clothing, shop by sport, new, men, women, kids, etc. You have so much product, and yet the menu is, I'm obsessed with it. I don't know what hand you had in terms of site design or testing the site or anything like that, but whoever worked on this, chef's kiss.
And again, no whiz bangs.
No whiz bangs. It's so simple.
Right? The front
so simple
is super experiential, and things are moving and shaking. But when it comes down to the money part of it, I mean, this couldn't be more simply laid out.
And then even the filter on the side, it's stuck here. It's so easy. You have everything you could want to filter by. Some filters are pre-selected because of how I got here, which I guess is Jordan and women's, because that's how I got to the menu. And then everything here, I mean, I don't think I have any notes. Even the sizing, like you have a bit of a scroll, then you have your sizes, which is a touch overwhelming, but it's shoes. You can't really get away from something like this. You have multiple access points. I love the colors up here. I just love it so much. I love this website.
And we've had so many clients sort of come to us being like, oh, shoppable images.
Well, you know what's funny? I feel like I know what you're going to say. And you know what's funny? We've had so many people come to us and say, make my site look like Allbirds. When what they should be saying is make my site look like Nike. Because Nike's website is 100 times better than Allbirds' website.
I love hearing this. Like brought you in back in like 2017 to 2021 and had you chat with us.
I mean,
so in my global role, we had sort of influence over that, but each geography is empowered to change it. So for instance, like North America versus EMEA versus an Asian geography to make it right for the consumer, which is great because we're creating this global playbook for best practices and UX or these global functionalities. So for instance, Shop the Look is one that I had a chance to launch here, the shoppable looks. And then each geography gets to pick and choose, like how much of this do we want to be manual versus algorithmically based? So I think that's the beauty of it too, is just empowering the geos to make it their own for their consumer.
Because my Nike is different. I have the option to Nike.com. So I'm still getting that strong image and everything. And then immediately I'm asked, would you like to have a local experience? And of course, it's completely different.
Bringing it back to Allbirds quickly, we did an Allbirds site takedown maybe a month ago, and we explored the other regional sites, and we thought they were so much better than the US site, and we're trying to figure out, what is it about that? Like, why did they introduce so many additional features to the US site versus the other sites, and what can they learn, and things like that. But that's so interesting. So you're at Nike for 4 years as well?
Yes. And then my last 3 years are really focused on growing the apparel business. So as a global digital GM of apparel, a lot of the focus was, growth is going to come from new categories and new dimensions. And men's footwear will always be kind of the heart and soul or the beginnings of Nike, but where else can we grow? So really had a chance to work on one, the digital journey, to kind of category expansion. So launched the hijab, the yoga collection, and also maternity to reach new athletes around the globe and also drive frequency for existing ones. And then also help support more geo expansion. So how do we really grow the business in EMEA or APAC, for instance, these higher growth opportunities? So that was a lot of fun in the journey as well.
Amazing.
That's awesome. I keep muting because I keep hearing my son upstairs.
It's fine.
I'm trying to protect our listeners from that.
People have babies and they make athletic equipment for that.
They make athletic equipment for babies. We do, honestly, my favorite products that he has are these two little baby shoes, and not baby, toddler shoes, I guess, that are Nike color blocked.
We're gonna have to wrap soonish.
We do have to wrap soon, not yet.
But I want to know what Jamie is what you're doing now. Like you've amassed a huge amount of experience.
Yep.
And bringing that to a consulting role, really at leadership, just how are you exploring that? Like, what are you doing, and what do you feel you're bringing? It's so important to have women in this industry, in this vertical of e-commerce, and just across commerce, really, actually. So.
Yeah. So my current chapter, so my last kind of full-time embedded employee chapter was really in late stage growth brands, as I like to call it. So at Everlane and Vital Proteins, it's a lot about how do we position these brands for profitable growth. So Everlane, it's almost like, okay, what is the 3 to 5 year outlook in driving profitability? And at Vital Proteins, our time there was really focused on pushing for that full acquisition and exit. So that was the journey there, and really enjoyed being a part of that stage of business, which I hadn't prior to that. A lot of it was innovation within these larger brands.
I don't think anyone's acquiring Walmart.
Exactly. Or Nike. They're more the acquirers.
Well, LVMH might acquire Nike. Who knows?
Yeah. You never know, right? And so what drove me to this current chapter is I've always enjoyed working with late stage and mid and early stage brands, but really my focus is designing more of a portfolio career. So the flexibility to advise or consult companies, maybe 2 or 3 of them at once, really focusing companies that are female founded in the hyper growth space in health and wellness, it really allows me to help not just one brand and really going deep, but multiple brands at scale. And that's what I love about consulting work and even my advising role at Stripes, where it's like, hey, maybe it's a company that just wants to chat for 2 hours about building out an e-commerce organization, or what does it look like to scale across Amazon, or we want to build our D2C brand. What does that look like? What are the resources needed? And it feels like I'm helping solve a lot of different problems for different organizations, and to be able to do that at scale in a new way. So you can do that at scale at Nike or at Vital Proteins to the consumer, but it's really brands that I care about, and their demo is so different depending on each brand that I work with.
Well,
and I'm also doing some content creation as well. So teaching online courses on e-commerce. You can find me on Maven. I'm teaching this class called E-commerce 201. And I love being able to reach out to such a vast student base. So anyone who's an e-commerce leader in a larger organization or a first-time founder, this kind of helps build out like, okay, what does e-com growth look like? So again, helping serve others at scale has really been my motto, and being able to do that in so many different formats, whether that's consulting, more project-based advising, or even content creation. Having more of that one-on-one teaching and coaching with these students has been really inspiring for me. And I've learned a lot too. I think I've learned more in this capacity than maybe in a full-time role where you're always just doing.
Well, you also have experience and exposure to so many more things when you're doing that. That's one of the reasons I love working, why I love being part of an agency, because of that exact same thing, right? I get to be involved in so many different brands and learn from what worked for them and also what didn't work, and apply that to kind of future brands, future clients. And it's a whole different world. Whereas, my husband's been at Google he just had his 10-year anniversary. And that's amazing. But, he's been at one company for 10 years, and he's been on a few different products within them. But it's, I feel like I learn so much more than he does day to day.
Yeah, well,
that's awesome.
We have to keep innovating. Because not only are we innovating and advocating for our clients, but just within the space, it is so easy to kind of get left behind if you're just using a methodology. You're at one company, so you're maybe looking at different technologies. We have to look at all the technologies, and I find that super exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also the flexibility to design your own lifestyle and schedule allows for more learning time too. So having one-on-one dialogue with people, taking your own classes and creating, or like, learning from other people, going to conferences, you have more flexibility to create that space. And it's harder when you're in an operator role where it's like, oh, we got to launch this promo next week. So it's all hands on deck, or it's
100%.
Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
But
you can,
we are still on the Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Right.
We are, but for a lot of different brands.
Around.
And I went to an event yesterday that was amazing. It was a Women's Month event hosted by this all-female law firm with kind of two awesome hosts. It was Hannah Eve, who's the founder of a marketing agency, and then I'm blanking on her name, Erin something, who started a Mezcal brand. She's also on Real Housewives of New York. She also has a real estate company. She also has an interior design company. And a lot of what they talked about is, being able to do multiple things and kind of creating your own schedule and your own day. So I think it's just so important for quality of life and learning and all of that. So we do have to wrap. If you could leave our guests and listeners, sorry, you're our guest. If you could leave our listeners with one piece of feedback, or one tidbit of information in terms of really e-commerce growth, what would it be?
Yeah.
If you can even give us one. If you have to give us 3, you can do that.
This is a good one. I'm pausing on this because it's like, it's hard to distill it.
It's really, really tough. And I think especially, so many brands really struggle with that profitability element where, especially if they get their footing with VC funding, they then don't know what to do when that funding doesn't exist anymore. And it's like, well, you really have to focus on profitability pretty early on, I think, to avoid that.
I would say that's definitely one that I would call out is like, there's always a focus for a lot of brands to drive user growth as much as possible without much of an eye on profitability. So what does this company look like in 1, 3, or 5 years? So knowing it's like, what do my margins look like? This customer acquisition strategy with digital marketing, is this actually going to scale for me? Or is this going to burn out in 6 months? I would say having an eye on profitability early on is really going to save you 1, 3, 5 years down the road. So that's really important. I would say the other 2 things too is like, one, really continuing to pay attention to the shifting sands in e-commerce. So things like privacy, that's a big one. AI, especially with all the shifts with Google this month in March, and knowing what's best for your company. I won't go into detail there, but always keeping an eye out on what's changing because it's really dynamic. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to get left behind. And then also in e-commerce, like in really strong companies that I've worked for, really having this like test and learn and adaptability mindset and culture in the business. If you're in a leadership role or you have an opportunity to promote that, really finding ways to orchestrate that too, because that's the only way you're going to thrive in the e-commerce space is to have that mindset. So promoting that culture is really important as well.
Love that. Love it so much. You're muted.
Yeah, I was muted. Those are 3 really, really, really important tidbits. I think we get hit a lot with, we can't do that. And it's like, well, why can't you test it? Even if it's to a small audience, why can't you test it? Right. And it's just see what happens, right? You don't have to, it doesn't have to be permanent, right? The whole point of this is flexibility and change and all of that. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jamie. This was really, really great. Where can our listeners find you if they want to connect?
Yes. So they can find me on my website. So jamiealee.com. So it's JAMIEA and then Lee, LEE.com.
We'll put that in the show notes too.
Yes. Awesome. So they can reach out to me there and there's a way to contact me via email through there.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And hopefully we will be in touch soon, just in life.
Yes.
All right.
Love chatting today. All right, all. Thank you.
Bye.